Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
Today I wanted to talk about a specific, narrowly focused nutrition concept, and what has been in front of me a lot is the difference between, or the conversation around, quality versus quantity. We've had several discussions about quality nutrition lately. Quality being the types of foods that we eat, and then the quantity just being really the number of calories or macronutrients. Which is better? Is it better to have a quality approach? Is it better to have a quantity approach? But that's actually not what I want to talk about today. What I want to say is, whether you believe quantity or quality is the best approach, each have a way of being described and understood so that you can really appreciate the value of either side of this argument. I want to dive into the quantity side of things today. Mm-hmm. Why does it matter to have a quantity equation when it comes to looking at our bodies, how our bodies change, whether they go up, whether they go down in weight, whether we can add muscle, whether we can't. And regardless of where you sit on the quality side of things, there are particular like laws of thermodynamics or laws of the physical universe that we can't skip, we can't disregard. And calories fit into that. How your body burns calories, how many calories are in food. Calories are a unit of measurement of energy. And so we can't create energy from nothing, and we can't magically dissipate energy to nothing. It all goes somewhere, right? We have conservation of sort of energy in this universe. So we eat calories. If we don't burn those calories in some way, then we're storing it somewhere in our body. Mm-hmm. If we're burning a bunch of calories, but we're not eating, we start to waste away. We start to, and that equation is just, it is true. Where people get hung up is that it's not a simple equation. I mean, yes, it says the calories that come in versus the calories go out will either be equal and you won't change your weight. There'll be more coming in, you'll gain weight, or there'll be more going out, you'll lose weight. But that equation is impacted by many different systems in the body, many different inputs and outputs. And so that's where I think people can get hung up and lose sight of like the simplicity and the elegance of this thing, which is like, yes, calories in versus calories out is real. Seco diets, like you got to balance that. Macros, if it fits your macros, like, it all comes down to the numbers. And then people go and try and apply the numbers, and the first time that they try and apply the numbers don't work, and they're like, oh, well, the numbers didn't work this one time, and therefore it's, wrong. It's like, well, how did you get to the numbers? Oh, I put them in on a calculator online. Okay. So that calculator online, the one of a million that are out there, you put in, and then you followed this plan. Loosely, you followed the plan. So the calculator might have been off, then you kind of loosely followed it. You didn't really track it that closely, and now the whole Seco thing is broken because that one experience. So I periodically go through phases where I really evaluate this system within myself, with other people, and I might practice like, okay, I'm going to really try and track very diligently, as scientifically as I can, my calories in, my weight, adjusting it, changing macros, and lo and behold, when I put forth that 10 out of 10 effort to do it right, it always works.
Yeah.
When I kind of fudge it a little bit, or when I'm like, 5 days out of 7, I'm like super dialed, and then 2 days I'm like, oh, we'll do this, and I ate out and I couldn't really track that. And when I get loose, like sometimes it doesn't work so beautifully, you know? And so that's maybe what I'd love to talk about today, and maybe answer some questions that we get from people that fit into this broad topic.
Great. Yeah. Well, I think one that jumps to mind that I certainly hear a lot is, how does it work to be at the place where you feel like you have gotten down to as little calories as you possibly can, and you're still not losing weight? What about that situation?
Great. Well, we can start there for sure. And this is also, I hear people saying like, well, I always undereat, but I gain weight, or like I can't lose weight. I'm always undereating, but I can't lose weight. The sad reality and the sad truth of that matter is that you are not, if you're not losing weight, you're not undereating. And meaning you're not in a caloric deficit. And that's hard for people to hear. Like, I'm eating 1,000 calories a day and I'm not losing weight. How is that possible? There's a couple scenarios that make that possible. One of the most common is you eat 1,000 calories a day, Monday through Friday. And by the weekend, you're pretty cooked. You're like feeling pretty low in energy. And over the course of the weekend, you kind of eat off the diet a little bit, or you eat off your plan, and you make up calories. You make up a lot of calories. You had 5,000 calories on Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday you had 2,500 calories and 3,000 calories, and now you, in the course of 2 days, you've ate more than what you ate in 5 days. And so your net on the whole week is significantly higher than what you felt like you were eating on a daily basis. And so Monday comes around again, you're recommitted because you just had this, big feeding frenzy. You went to a couple parties, you went out, you ate something you don't normally eat, you had some drinks, you didn't count those, then you were maybe a little drunk and you got like a hot dog on the way out of the bar, and like whatever, right? So Monday comes around, you nail it again, 1,000 calories a day for, Monday through Friday, but now you're back up at 2,200, 2,500 for the next 2 days. So your average for all those days of the week is more like 1,400, 1,500 calories every single day for 7 days. And that's your maintenance level of calories. In order to lose body fat, you're going to need to hit that 1,000 calories a day, 7 days a week for many weeks to start seeing body fat start coming off your body, 1 pound a week. And that's really hard to recognize. The other common scenario is that, you actually aren't, maybe you're like, well, that's not me. I don't like binge on the weekends. I don't eat poorly on the weekends. Okay, well then maybe you're just not an accurate reporter on the days that you're doing it. You got to I kind of don't measure it, but I like just put a splash of cream in. So I'm calculating a tablespoon, but really it was 4 tablespoons you put in, which was another 100 calories, 120 calories just in your coffee, of cream. And then, you chew gum. It's the 0-calorie gum, or it's the sweet, sugar-free gum, but it's 5 calories per piece, and you ate a pack a day, and that's another 100 calories that you just had, just gum, because you're trying to keep the hunger, off your mind, so you're chewing gum. And then maybe you're, maybe you're eyeballing things, or not eyeballing, but you're just, okay, a tablespoon of peanut butter. All right. So you take a tablespoon and you spread it on a piece of, a rice cracker. Now, a tablespoon, if you put the peanut butter on the scale, a tablespoon of peanut butter is 16 grams. Most people I watch, when they take a spoonful of peanut butter, it's not a tablespoon, it's 32 grams. It's 2 tablespoons even if you're using the tablespoon measure and you like level off the top of it, it could still come out to be more. And so 1 tablespoon versus 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is another 100 calories. So there you just, the heavy splash of cream, the gum, the kind of eyeballing the tablespoon of peanut butter, and then, I don't know, you decide to put some sriracha hot sauce. You didn't count that, but you put 4 to 5 teaspoons of sriracha. It's another 40 calories. You know, these little things add up. I've already named 340 calories worth of kind of fudging it, and you're on 1,000 calories a day. You just increased your baseline by 34%. That is very, very bad science if you're doing this as an equation. So those are some areas where people, and you know, I don't know that there's a lot of people in the I only eat 1,000 calories a day bucket, but this could be true for somebody who's eating 1,800 calories a day and their maintenance is 25 and they're in this, they believe they're in this big deficit, but hey, you're fudging it a little bit, but maybe not being super accurate. And one more scenario. When we diet and you are dieting down, you start to reduce your calories. Your body has mechanisms. We all have mechanisms by which we are trying to survive. And we know how to turn different dials so that we don't waste away and die. In situations of starvation, we have all kinds of things that happen inside of our body and mental signals that also change our behaviors that are going to reduce how much energy we are expending. On week 6, week 10, week 12 of a diet, of a caloric restriction, you're less inclined to fidget. You're less inclined to get up and go walk around and, you know, do the household chores. You're not moving as much and expending as much energy. You could still be going to the gym, but then the time that you're not in the gym, you're not moving as much. Our body is sending kind of like the depressed, low motivation signals to the body, like, hey, slow the F down. Mm-hmm. You don't feel like doing anything. And that's to protect you. So you would normally fidget away 300 calories a day. Now you're not fidgeting those 300 calories. So you had dropped 300 calories in your diet. You were burning that extra energy, and now you've slowed down. Whoom. So now your deficit's gone. You're no longer in a deficit. That's why at 300 calories less, you're not losing weight anymore. Again, your body doesn't want to wither into nothing. It wants to maintain as best possible. And then there's other things that are happening inside your body, like certain enzymes and certain metabolic processes that just you don't need. You're like, haven't been eating as many calories and you're like cold all the time. Why are you cold all the time? Because your body's not doing a lot of thermogenesis. It's not trying to like produce heat to keep you warm. It's not digesting stuff. It's just getting cold. So those are a lot of the reasons why people start to feel frustrated with the I'm eating little, but I'm not seeing the results. Mm-hmm. Because eating a little for long periods of time is challenging. You'll face hunger. You'll be challenged especially in social situations, to hold on to willpower. It's like, that's why during the pandemic and lockdowns, for me, it was easy to get shredded. Like I dropped a ton of body fat because I didn't have anything to do except for just like, here are my meals. Here's what I do every day. You know, now like we're going to Disneyland. We're going on this little outing. We're going to hang out with these people. We're going to this dinner. And I'm like, man, there's all this, like, we're doing movie night at the Country Mart. Like, sure, I'll have a glass of wine. Sure, I'll have a little bit of popcorn. Like, it didn't really fit my macros, but you know, it was fun. And it's like, when you have a lot more social environment variables, like it's difficult to always keep these, you know, numbers and things aligned to what you say your goal is, or your calorie equation that you're trying to hit.
Yeah. I'll add one more to the mix, which is that I found it difficult when I was tracking to actually get accurate calorie counts sometimes for things. Like
Yes.
you go on MyFitnessPal and you look up your favorite food that you eat, and there's like 5 different variations, and they have like a 200 calorie range for like the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's why, generally eating whole foods and then searching for, like packaged foods and ingredient labels, things that you buy in the store that are somewhat processed. The FDA allows for, I think, something like a 20% deviation. Like you could 20% underreport or 20% overreport. They're going to always underreport because someone sees like, oh, this is only 100 calories. I'm going to get that per serving. Really, it's 120 calories per serving. And they just, it was like considered reasonable error by the FDA, and they don't have to accurately report it. But, it's like 100 grams of blueberries generally yields, this much. It's like, that's a pretty standard metric that you can count on, especially if you're looking in these food databases and they have like, verified ingredients, right? So 100 grams of blueberries, 2 eggs. This is another area. It's like 2 eggs. I mean, you get the jumbo eggs or you get the small eggs. It's like there's an equation, there's a way of looking at this. This is why when I'm trying to be very scientific, I always measure everything out by grams.
Yeah.
And I always find something in the database that I can reference by grams. So a 1/4 cup of egg whites or 100 grams of egg whites. I'm always going to go for 100 grams. It's like 3 whole eggs. Well, a whole egg is always measured, like what the databases generally look at is a 50-gram egg. You crack an egg into a cup on a scale. Is it 50 grams? Oh, is the jumbo egg with 2 yolks 70 grams? Like that's going to be more calories than a 50-gram egg.
Yeah.
So there are some nuances there, but what I find is that if you're approaching your diet and you're doing things consistently, so I get 2 eggs every morning from the same carton, from the same provider, it's going to all work itself out.
Right.
Meaning like you're cracking 2 eggs, you're inputting it as 100 calories or 200 calories, whatever it is. Maybe it's really 210, but it's always 210 for you every day, which is going to lead to kind of the next thing, which is everything's a guess when you start. None of us are going and actually living in a controlled environment where we can measure our thermodynamics perfectly. There are rooms that they do this in, studies where you like stay in a bedroom, like that's basically enclosed, and they can like actually measure like the CO2 and the oxygen. They measure the air, like how much oxygen is in the room and how much CO2 is in the room, tells you how much you've oxidized inside your body, so they can calculate how much you've burned.
Oh, wow.
Then they also can weigh everything and like hand it to
your
you,
poop.
weigh your poop, all of that. And you can get really accurate, but we don't live in that kind of environment. I remember Tim Ferriss actually once talking about how he used to weigh, like for like a period of 6 months or something.
He weighed his poop.
He weighed his poop, right? He's Mr. Scientific nerd. He would do that. But we don't do that. What we do instead is we take an educated guess as to like where we should start, and then we make adjustments, and then we see what the outputs look like.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to be super detailed and measure everything perfectly, you can still use this concept to see success.
Right.
So long as you're relatively consistent, hey, I always take about the same scoop of peanut butter. Okay, great. Well, guess what? You made your assumption based upon the calculator that you need 1,500 calories a day to lose fat. You created a meal plan that is supposed to roughly hit that. And this is what you're eating most days. After 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you haven't lost a pound. Okay, guess what? That amount of food with your level of activity is maintenance.
Yep.
That's what you learned in 3 weeks. Yep. You learned that the calculator was overestimating for you.
Yep.
Or that your meals, you're not accurately measuring, but this is the level of detail you want to go through. So just recognize like what you thought you were, so you were either actually burning, you're actually, maybe that 1,500 calorie meal plan that you have, the way you measure it is 1,800 because you kind of take big scoops, Okay, guess what? Now you got to do some adjusting. Do you want to increase your activity or do you want to cut back on some of those calories?
Yeah.
So maybe instead of taking 2 spoonfuls of peanut butter, you got to go down to 1. And maybe because you thought you were burning this much energy, you're actually not burning that much energy. So you got to add a 30-minute walk in a day. And this is what's going to move the needle a little bit for you. So when the equation doesn't work, it's not because the laws of the physical universe don't work. It means that we just had an error somewhere. And now we know. And this is where I think most people should start anyway, is rather than start with a calculator and figure it out and then go, it's why don't you just track what you're doing now?
Yeah.
For 2 weeks. Once you know what you're doing for 2 weeks, you're like, okay, I inputted all my food and it says I'm burning 2,200 or says I'm consuming 2,200 calories a day. That's what I've averaged for the last 2 weeks. My weight's the same. Guess what? We know you burn 2,200 calories a day with your current routine of going to the gym 4 times a week and then just living life. All right. Now's the time to make the decision and to start to turn the dials on this equation. Are we going to go a 5th time to the gym? That might bump up your calories, in a good way. Are you going to cut back on some of that food? Maybe you're going to intermittent fast and you're going to skip breakfast and now you just cut 500 calories out of your diet. Like, are you going to do something else? Right? You just get to start playing with some of the numbers and the dials to move this into this favorable weight loss category.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about the calorie expenditure part where I think people can get tripped up sometimes, because we've often seen questions like, oh, well, my Apple Watch said I burned 800 calories in that workout.
Yes.
Or the calculator said that I'm high activity and it says I'm burning all this energy.
Great. I feel like wearables that track calories, depending on the wearable, I mean, I have experience with Whoop, but I think what you'll find is that they're not all super consistent. Like you might I remember going on like bike rides, like I would do the same bike ride. I'm like, this says I burned 1,000 calories on this bike ride, but last time I was only 700. Like it's the same ride, I didn't like do any more work. Right. And wearables can be motivating in that way. They can be like, oh, I want to get my calories up today or my steps up or whatever. And you want to use that to like motivate you for more activity. What I think is important, especially if you're trying to do the weight loss game or even the weight gain game, is to really try and take a step back and be like, what is happening over the course of many days, weeks, and months in terms of my averages? Get out of zoom out beyond past just day to day. Today you burned an extra 1,000 calories. Tomorrow you only burned 200 calories. The next day you burned 500. Like, okay, over the course of weeks, what's your average added energy expenditure? And rather than needing to look at your watch for that, you can just compare it to the other side of like the energy consumption. If you're eating 2,000 calories and you're losing a pound of body fat a week, then that means you're burning much more than 2,000. You're burning probably 500 calories a day beyond 2,000, and that's got you in a deficit. If you're not losing weight, you're just staying the same at 2,000 calories, then guess what? I don't care what your Apple Watch says. Like you're in maintenance. Like that's how much you're burning each day. That I believe is like a better way of approaching this, is to set the, find what maintenance is for you, either by like an estimation that is given to you by a online calculator, and then you stick to it for 2 to 3 weeks, or by just tracking for 2 to 3 weeks to see what, you at maintenance looks like. I therefore do not believe it's appropriate to look at your watch on a day-to-day basis and be like, I burned an extra 1,000 today. I got to go have, today's my day to go eat my cake. So I'm like, that's my general advice on wearables and like the day-to-day. If you're somebody who's in a caloric deficit or a caloric surplus and you've been doing it for a long time and it's working, this is where I will make one kind of edit to what I just said. I'm in a deficit right now of 500 and I've been going steadily for 4 weeks and, I'm losing a pound of body fat a week. On week number 7, like my friends want to hang out and we go for a really big hike. It's like not on my schedule. My schedule has been like Monday through Friday I lift, this day I do this day I do this. Like everything's like all my inputs and outputs are pretty dialed. Now, like my friends decide they want to do something and I want to be with them and we do something way outside of my normal. I could just like stick to my guns and just charge through it and feel like that doesn't change anything. I'm going to stick to my plan. But what's probably better is to be like, okay, I just expended all this extra energy. I'm on my normal thing. My body's going to respond in a way that's like the next day it's going to be like really hungry, cause it's be like, whoa, like that was a big change. What just happened? And I'm not trying to lose weight faster. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to stay steady. So in an instance like that, where you're already on a very consistent thing and you have your plan dialed and you do this added bit, then I think it might be appropriate to like refuel a little bit, add a little bit extra, do your best to just estimate like kind of what that energy output looked like, but it's okay. If you're doing that every single day, then you are just kind of like you're doing poor science. You're just like, oh, the Petri dish is looking a little, let me just add a little something to that. It's like, whoa, you just threw off the whole control of this experiment. We don't know what the heck you just did.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm trying to sort of formulate the ideal marketing message around this in my mind, which I'm definitely not there yet. But what I'm kind of coming up with so far is like, be average, instead of going into the fine details and trying to be a super, like on the nose person in the minute of each day. Like, oh, I just, went for a run. I've got to immediately like go and replenish those calories or whatever.
Yeah.
Stepping back to just kind of look at the bigger picture of what's the average amount I'm eating? What's the average amount I'm expending?
Yep.
Are these balancing out over time, over an average week, month, etc., or not?
Yeah. And I think the other message is if the equation didn't work, it doesn't mean it's not broken, or it doesn't mean that it's broken.
Yeah.
So, I've been doing this for 3 weeks. I've been in this deficit for 3 weeks and I've lost no weight. It's like, well, no, you haven't been in a deficit if you lost no weight. Like people that are starving in the world are really emaciated. Like they really lose fat and muscle. That happens. And I don't think you're the exception to that. So after 3 weeks, this equation didn't work. Okay, the rules work, the equation is solid, but your inputs were a little off or miscalculated, or just there's the wrong assumptions that were made. So let's look at that. And that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, because just because it didn't work doesn't mean that it wasn't hard.
Right.
Right? It's like I basically felt like I suffered for 5 days a week to have like 2 days of indulgence where I actually felt shamed for doing it. And now it's like a whole week of just feeling shitty. 5 days of feeling like I'm starving. 2 days of like hating myself for eating the donut or eating, drinking the drinks and the hot dog after the bar. Like, yep. And I got to go back to hating being starving like that. And then you're like, well, this obviously doesn't work. Like I need to find the next thing. Should I try intermittent fast? Like,
Yes.
And it's, so again, it doesn't mean it wasn't hard, but it still means that something needs to change, and we need to readjust to find a scenario where you can be more consistent, feel less deprived, manage the hunger better, and get to that 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 week, length of time where you aren't having big ups and downs in terms of calories and energy expenditure, and you just find this more consistent rhythm that allows you to start to shape and change, how your body looks and feels.
Yeah. And that would be a really appropriate time to start working with a coach or nutrition support person in your life who has some expertise with this, because that can be a really tricky path to navigate on your own if you feel like you've been butting your head against the wall and nothing has worked, and it's an endless cycle of shame and deprivation and feeling really bad about your relationship with food.
Totally.
There can be a whole new way to engage with it, but you may need some support for that.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny that I just mentioned that, like, that scenario of like, I did something that was just like way outside of like the normal energy expenditure or whatever. Because yesterday I went on a bike ride that I decided to go a different route than I normally go on my Thursday ride. I went from my house, and it was like I felt like I was in the Tour de France. It was like full, like, Alpe d'Huez, like this massive climb. Like, I got to the top. I was like, what just happened to me? Like, I just completely crushed it, like my body and the whole. And I'm like, today, I'm like, yeah, I'm extra hungry. Like,
you're literally looking at my popcorn right now.
Yeah, there's this bag of like white cheddar popcorn over here that says 60 calories per serving, and there's like
from there.
8 servings in this bag. I'm like, okay, what's 8 times 6? Because this whole thing is going down, So, yeah, it's like the best way to use this thermodynamics, laws of physical universe, calories in, calories out equation thing is to like you said, like, just find a good average and just do it consistently. Weight loss is not easy for anybody. It shouldn't be easy. If it's too easy, then guess what? You're going to get to the 3-week mark and be like, this is broken. It's not working.
Yeah.
Right. But it should be something that you're like, how can I do this for the next 6 months? And you can and will be able to turn the dials, so long as you're not trying to like go crazy. Like, I'm going to do these 3 mega mountain bike rides every week, and it's going to send me into a calorie deficit so fast, and be like, yeah, but you're going to do one of those rides and you're going to like, your mind is going to go mental, like with just this willpower fight. Like, you don't want to do that, So that's why when people say like, hey, what's the best training plan that you offer to like lose body fat? I'm like, it's the one that's like the most consistent, which to me is like pump or pillars, because those are so consistent. Like they're always, I mean, they're hard, but they're always like, Perform is our program that has a bit more variety, and there's more cardio in this training cycle. There's more strength, there's more gymnastics. It really explores fitness. It's for the person who's really into that performance side, and loves that and knows how to manage their body composition, their food, in other ways. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. But this, hopefully people enjoyed this one. Any closing thoughts?
No, I feel like we covered a lot, but I would love to hear people's questions if they have follow-up questions that they'd like us to address.
Yeah, definitely. And you can send those to us a number of ways, but definitely slide into DMs at Satya Khan, at Marcus Philly, Instagram. And if you're not watching these on YouTube, that's another place you can go drop comments. These episodes are live on our Functional Bodybuilding YouTube station.
Absolutely.
Channel, station, whatever.
Channel.
See you next time.
See ya.